Hey guys, Pete Ramsey here, HVAC Greatness, along with the great Kelley McKay from the HVAC Millionaire Coaching. Kelley, how's it going, my friend?
It's going good, Pete. How are you doing?
Good, good, dude. You're going to have to tell us about your event. So I heard you had that, and I heard really good things about it. Everybody stuck around after the event wanting to know more. So tell us a little bit about, what it consisted of, why people were so excited, and, uh,
Yeah,
all the nuggets that you got.
sure. We covered a ton at the event. One of the main things, because we asked for feedback afterwards. It's kind of like getting reviews from customers. We want to know, like, what can we improve? What went well? What did you like the most? What did you like the least? And really had great feedback from everybody. I definitely got we definitely got 100% said that they would recommend this to other people. So I was super happy about that.
Awesome. That's what you love to hear.
And one of the things, because this was an experiential event, like I was promoting, it's really experiential. Like you just have to experience it.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of breakout groups and and I think eight out of I'd say like 85% of all of the evaluation sheets that I got back said that that was their favorite part of the event was getting to collaborate with other business owners and getting to know them, because a lot of times we don't get to know people when we go to these events. We might, have we might exchange pleasantries, in between sessions or something, but this
Sure.
is more of a deeper level. So you really got to bounce ideas off of people that were at the group that were all different levels in business. And so they loved that part. We had great food, I'll tell you that. So we got lucky there.
Priorities, baby. Priorities.
Yes, yes. But
Yeah.
overall, it was a success. Everybody, it was really nice to get to meet some of the clients that I've worked with for like the last couple of years and just have never been in the same room with. So that was really cool. Just getting to be with them. So one of the things I'll tell you is that it just was too short. It was just over too fast.
Yeah.
I wish we would have had more time just to hang out and spend more time together, because they're just great people. So
No, I used to love those kind of. I've met some of my customers as well, and that's really. It's like you're like you and I. We've never met in person. We just do this kind of thing, but I got to tell you, when I met, I remember meeting Zeke from Maryland and George from South
yeah,
Carolina, and I think the three of us we all went and hung out one time, and I mean, it's just like
I feel
meeting up
like
with
I've
old
known
friends.
Zeke for a long time, just because he was always a fan of the podcast when I was on the HVAC Uncensored podcast, and he was always super interactive with us. So he's just such a nice guy. So I've
He
always
is. He is.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and so is George. George is another good one. I don't know if you dealt with George Childers. Uh, he just rebranded. He
Something.
did the kick charge thing. He went with
Yeah,
Smooth Sailing. That's his
yeah,
brand. Yeah,
yeah,
kind of cool. Captain Comfort piloting that ship. Has
yeah.
nothing to do with heat and air. It's an attachment to an emotion, which is pretty clever
Yes.
on the branding side. Um, Yeah, it's really cool. And in those breakout sessions, that's what happened. That's why I used to love the dealer meetings. Back when I was a train dealer in North Carolina, that was the fun stuff. We go down to, Hilton Head or something like that down in South Carolina, and or Myrtle Beach or whatever. Everybody go down there, and I always hung out with the same people. There was a
Yeah,
guy. I'm 6'5". I'm a pretty big guy.
yeah.
My favorite guy to hang around with was 6'9", and and he and I, well, he was a big drinker, and I
Yeah,
drank a little bit, but oh my God, we just beer, but we would hang out and drink beer and just have the best time. And because it spilled over from the day session, it was spill over, and what are you doing later? Let's go over here, let's do this,
yeah, yeah,
and I can remember, because we were so tall, standing there in a convenience store to buy a 6-pack of beer or whatever we were doing. These people walk in and they just look at us as they're walking by. They want to know if a
yeah.
basketball event was in town, because
Right.
he was older than me, just a few years, but still young looking guy. But
Yeah.
those breakout sessions, when you're interacting, those are pretty powerful, and they are also virtually. I was telling you about this offline. Um, we had these live events where people were coming in Zoom, and we ultimately converted those into mastermind groups. We've got 2 of them. Zeke's in one of them. You mentioned, we talked about Zeke, and the camaraderie that results. I mean, everybody knows everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
it's an
That was
interesting
another thing.
No, it's an interesting dynamic. If you tell somebody, hey, come join a mastermind group, they're like, you know, they're not going to want to do it. Then when they get in there, they're going to be shy. They want to leave the camera off. And then, you know, then they're going to be forced into a conversation. Before you know it, they get to know everybody. Then you can't get them shut up.
Right.
It's just, and they're always looking forward to it. It's weird, but maybe that's just human nature. Well, I'm glad you had a good event. I knew the content would be good because you've been working on it for a long time. And it sounds like the guys really appreciated it. Love that.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, just a room full of great people, so couldn't ask for anything really to have gone any better. I mean, it went really well, and I'm super excited for the next one, um, for lots of reasons. One of the main reasons is because we're going to give ourselves more than 20 days to promote it and market it.
Yeah,
That would give a lot of other people more of a chance to make sure to jump in and come see us. So.
yeah, and you'd be surprised. You're putting your information out there for 20 days, and people hear about it for the very first time the day before it starts. You know, it just
Yeah,
takes a
yeah,
while. Yeah, that's what I've learned as well,
yeah.
because we do these events, and you don't give it people enough time, and you don't get the show, the turnout, and sometimes they need that repetition to be reminded because everybody's busy.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
we've
So we'll
had,
probably do like September, October. I'll try to keep it away from any other major events happening from other people who do events
yeah,
uh, in our space. So
we were talking about doing that for our mastermind groups. Everybody's gonna fly in. They
yeah,
settled on Florida, then they said September, and I'm like, guys, that's hurricane season. And so we did
yeah,
not go, and they had a hurricane right where we were supposed to go, which was
yeah,
I think we were looking that West Coast Florida, St. Pete, that area. It was one of the areas we were looking at. That's where it went, that
yeah.
particular time. So yeah, there's good time and there's bad time. So the event that you're going to be coming up, have you got a date in mind on that? A topic
I
in
don't
mind
have
on
a
that?
I don't have a date yet.
Okay.
Probably be like October, I'm guessing.
And
Um,
are you going to go in a different area, or did you like Arizona?
I liked Arizona. I think we might do a different area though in Arizona. So
Okay. I've never been. Maybe we ought to collaborate on something. Flagstaff, my dad lived out there, and I never got to go visit him. You know,
yeah,
um, he actually
I
left.
think I think the next one we might do 3 days just because
Yeah.
there's so much more we could have gotten into and shared and you know just gave out this information just so it's that
Sure.
much more. I mean, not that it wasn't great and everybody got a lot of breakthroughs and a lot of new insights and connections and collaborations and all this stuff, but still
Well, what?
there's so much more to talk about. Like we tried to squeeze as much as we could in those 2 days.
Yeah, and I think the reason these things are so important, these live events or what have you, you have situations where you can go online and take courses, right? You can get the information. You're going to leave your phone on, and you're going to be distracted, and you're going to miss things. But when you're actually there, the information does tend to sink in better because you're live and in person, and there's less distractions. But number two is when you do these breakout sessions and you do exercise and you interact with other people, and you start to realize that other people do things different than you that you think would never work, and they're not only successful at it, but they're very successful at it. You have these aha moments. We call that a paradigm shift. You remember, was it Stephen Covey? And those are when your internal game starts to gain some traction, and you start to grow up here, and then you tend to execute with more confidence, uh,
Hmm.
as
That's
opposed
really what
to
it's about. I mean, the first day, it's the way the content's designed is um, to get that confidence up because we need that. We need to have the confidence to do what we need to do. And of course, I mean, we share a ton of business stuff peppered in there as well. But you got to get your confidence up. And once we
Right.
get through that, then we can move on and really start making some decisions on what we're going to do in our business. This particular training was, because of what time of year it is, it was gauged towards like, okay, what are we going to do before the end of the year?
Yeah.
Let's make some decisions, get clear, have clarity on
Right.
where we're going, how we're going to get there, and then start taking action.
Right. Right.
So, and I think we are successful in doing that. So, yeah, it
Yeah.
was good. It was fun. I definitely, I've done this with my team before, where we had like a whole day, training, and I just loved it, and my team liked it too. So I knew I would have a good time doing it, and it didn't disappoint. So,
Well, what I love when we have these, and it sounds like you had one of these, is when you can
mhm.
go to an event and you come home knowing that you're going to be better with something you can actually implement, as opposed to events that I've been to in the past, and I know you have too, where you
Yeah.
go and they get everybody excited, it's all pumping and getting you all excited, and you go back but you basically go back to the same old stuff. And so you got an emotional high for motivation.
Or or even worse, like you go to the event and it's just, because we got several feedback statements that said also that this wasn't about, it wasn't about the coaches, it wasn't about us, it wasn't about the event, it wasn't about a program that we're trying to sell. It wasn't about that. It was about the people in the room. And that's what it was designed to be for. It's not for me. It's not for the coaching program. It's not for that. It's for the people who come to have a transformational experience. And
So, and we
yeah.
were talking about this before we hit the record button. Um, if you and I as coaches are focused on just putting content out and getting good information out, we're not really seeing our customers get the results until we say, how do we do it better? How do we help them you know, get what they need, right? And so what we've come to realize is we've got to do a lot of hand holding. And no offense to HVAC, contractors, but they're all over the place, and for them to take and invest the time, sometimes they're like, can you just do this for me? No, but I
Yeah.
can hold your hand and do it with you, and this way it's yours and it's customized for you and your situation. And so it's just like, if you're a contractor, your heat and air contractor, it's about your customer, and it's about how can you take their emotional state of stress and give them the opposite of, wow, I'm so glad I called this company. I'll never do business with anybody else again. This was awesome. They're honest, they took good care of me, they communicated well, their work was fantastic, all of the things that they need in order to get that relationship. Because um you can't, and you don't get that by going out and avoiding talking to your customer, or communicating with them what's really going on, or being overly opinionated. Well, this is what you need to do, and here's what I recommend. Actually sitting down, having a little bit of empathy, well, not sitting down, but what I'm saying, having that
Mhm.
conversation and really caring about your customer and what do they need. And when you get to that level, it's a universal truth. It applies with us, applies with our listeners. It applies with anybody who's going to be successful in today's market, because there's enough people out there that are just in it for themselves. And
Well, and years ago, the way sales happened, like it's just it's different. It's not that people could lie, and they'd be like, if Pete told me that, oh yeah, I had this boat, it was this and this and this, and I could say, oh yeah, I had a boat just like that, Pete. Like, and just lie to your face.
sure,
And now, like, with everything's a lot more transparent. Like, customers aren't in the dark. There used to be this, I've talked about, I don't know if we've talked about it before, but it used to be very uneven. Like, the sales guy held all the answers, and the customer had to ask the sales guy questions to find out the answers. Well, it's not like that anymore. People do have a lot of their own answers. Of course, with our industry, it can be very complicated and specific to each individual circumstance or situation, or or structure, that we're dealing with, but we still have to collect the information and then, feed it back to the customer as professionals versus having all the answers.
True.
Jeff Bezos, he's famous for having a chair in the boardroom, that stays empty for the customer. I think we talked about that maybe just a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same, when we go into a house. Like, we can't go in there and just be the all-seeing, all-knowing, because it just it doesn't it's not going to come across nearly as well as if you really have to get curious and you got to ask questions. And so I call that part of the sales psychology. It's clarity. Like, you have to get clear, and the way you get clear below the surface of just what they may tell you without asking questions is you have to ask questions. You have to truly be curious about what's going on, and find out under the surface, what is it that they really want? What is it that they really need?
Yeah. So in line with that, 100% agree, first of all.
Mhm.
What I've seen, and when I develop my service call process, I call it the consultative service call.
Mhm.
And it changes that. It's asking information. It's being a consultant and an advisor, and being able to translate this information into something that the homeowner can feel
Yeah.
like, I'm making this decision myself. I'm choosing myself, as opposed to being told what I need to do or being recommended, and I'm in the dark, not really knowing if I just got took advantage of or not. Because, I've seen the hit reports on the news, and these guys ripping people off and everything. So I don't know who I can trust. That's one of their biggest fears, by the way, is of they're afraid of overpaying or being taken advantage of. And by
Being
creating
sold, social pressure also,
social pressure, in terms of their peers,
like
their
friends,
neighbors.
friends and family, peers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Afraid of making the wrong decision.
well, yeah. And that's why, one of the triggers that salespeople use, this is our most popular option here. Most,
Hmm.
because it's been pre-selected. There's a lot of
Right.
strategies that you can use in your favor for that, obviously. And, we do that in our positioning as well, on the psychology of putting all this together in a consultative sales process, because it's the same, it's a very similar thing. But in order
Yeah.
to do that, you have to do good work. You have to really diagnose. You really have to dig into the system, get beyond the initial problem, look at the system as a whole, and know what you're looking at. Can you identify airflow problems? As a technician, probably not in the beginning stages, because they didn't teach you that. They teach you how to take the equipment, get it running, but not necessarily understanding airflow until later. But you don't learn manual J and manual D over at the trade school. We didn't. Actually, we did. I think we did. But
Pete did.
we didn't linger on it. And so, but anyway, you know what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's being that consultant, and it's really all about the customer, and saying, look, we got tons of options. We'll find the one that's right for you. Um, let's look at what you've got, and let's just break this thing down. And we use a process where kind of translates it for them. There's a right brain, left brain thing, and you understand this. And I hate to go too deep on this, but guys, it's really important. There's the logical brain, which we love to sell with. Oh gosh, this is, you don't understand. This is 21 SEER. This is not 16 SEER. And okay, that's just like saying, that's a gigabyte more than, whatever, all this foreign
Like
language
saying
for.
it's variable speed, or saying that
Yeah,
it's got X amount of steps,
right.
or
Yeah,
it's all.
and the latent capacity on this is terrific.
Yeah.
So, right. And so all that stuff really doesn't matter. But there's also that right brain. And so the right brain is more symbolic. And when you can take something and symbolize, I use this in the presentation where we'll have this showing a house where we're measuring up all the house for the low calc on one side. And on the other side, we've got this man with his clothes are too small and this little boy with his clothes are too big, illustrating we got to find the right size, right? And so So they on a level, they kind of get it. They don't understand the technical part, but I get what you're saying. And we do that for every single step. And it's kind of cool. They go, oh, yeah, that makes sense, and
Yeah, that's
they get the overall ideas, and that's what they want. They want to they want to understand. They kind of want to know what they're doing, and not everybody's cheap.
that's part of the psychology behind it is what you just said right there is called what they just call compared to what. Like
Yeah,
you have to
contrasting.
compare it to something. There has to be contrast.
Yeah, yeah,
And I shared that at the event, shared like the contrast principle and and this concept of compared to what, because it's people need a reference.
they
They don't
do.
understand heating and air conditioning. They don't understand what a heat load calculation is. So they need a reference, and that's what you're giving them when you show those illustrations like that. So
They
that's
do. And one example of that is if you want to sell, that $15,000 system, your high end system, put right next to it a $22,000 system. It will contrast. It will
yes,
allow them to see.
yeah. That I have a slide. Says little
Same thing.
money. I call that slide little money versus big money.
Yeah,
So you want to contrast the cost of the repair also. What is this going to cost you down the road if we don't take care of this today? It's going to cost a lot more, because with our systems, if you don't, for instance, if you don't clean an evaporator coil, what's that going to do to the heat exchanger during heat season? It's going to cause excessive expansion and contraction. It's going to cause premature failure. Well, how much does a heat exchanger cost to replace? I mean, honestly, just throw it out there. You don't even know, but let's say $3,500 to replace a heat exchanger that's out of warranty. So $3,500 versus my measly $600 or whatever I want to charge to replace. That's compared to what?
yeah,
When you compare it to what, we're talking small money versus big money. Um, Also, one of the analogies that I use for blower motors is, you know, you pull out these blower motors. I've just seen some pictures this week because people are starting to do cleaning checks in all the groups and stuff. So
oh yeah.
I'm seeing these disgustingly
I know. I've seen
filthy blower
them.
assemblies, and you look at that and you say, this is how this motor's little, Pete. See
Right.
how I mean, think of this like think of the vehicle that you have out in your driveway. That's got a big motor in it. I mean, think of
Right.
how big the motor is. I mean, you got to have
Yeah.
the hood. You open the hood, it's this great big motor compared to this little bitty motor. Can you
Right.
imagine strapping 6 tons of weight to the top of your truck out there? And do you think it's going to get better gas mileage or worse gas
You
mileage?
get that right. That's a
Do you
good
think
one.
it's going to last longer or it's going to die prematurely? What do you think, Pete? Well, that's what's going on here. This is a little bitty motor, and this is the equivalent to strapping 6 tons of crap on this motor. It's not going to last. And so we need to definitely take care of that. I'll put that in my options and we'll talk about it when I'm finished with totally diagnosing everything here.
Yeah, and again, you gave them something they can relate to. They
Yeah,
understand.
just relate it to something
Yeah.
compared to what?
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
But one of the things that here's what you're going to learn. You're going to get better at this. You're a technician, you're out there and you're getting better and better, and you just flow. You just got to wait because you've learned. But we've talked about this before as well. When you hire that helper or trainee or even another technician, they're not you, and they're not going to have the skill set of being able to communicate that way. Or maybe you don't have that communication skill set yet, and that's your struggle. You do great work, but you're not perceived as doing great work because you don't communicate it too well. A lot of this can be done, and this is what we preach heavily is we understand what it is that the customers need to experience in terms, so that they can perceive it as quality and you as honest and things, and we put that in and you said it earlier before hit the reporting process, a written process that you follow, and actual visual references that you use and actual data that you can pull out and share, and third party validation, and which is what you were talking about earlier, is they just don't have a product. They're shooting from the hip. And if this
Yeah,
is
and then they hire somebody else, one of their friends, who also is good at service or whatever, and then that friend goes off and does their own thing. So
yeah,
there's two different things happening in the company right there. Like nobody's on the same page. It happens all the time.
which brings up another trigger. You mentioned contrast. The other one is consistency.
Yeah,
People hate inconsistency. That's why franchises are popular.
business owners hate inconsistency.
Yeah, they should, but they don't think
I
about the
mean, I
customer.
mean, with their teams, like usually if you've got a really good driven, highly, skilled technician slash turned business owner, they're going to be pretty thorough in every call. But when they hire other people, those people might not. And so that was my experience. Like I was always very consistent personally. I was always focused on the call that I was at hand, um, doing the best job I could, doing everything thoroughly. Like I'm one of those people, I get real anal about it. Like I don't want to walk away from a unit and forgot, if I ever forgot to do something, then I would just stew about it. I wouldn't be able to sleep that night, and I'm somebody who does not have a hard time going to sleep at night, but I was just so thorough with every call. But I
Well,
know a lot of times your team members aren't. So
that's why pilots have a checklist that they because they know those planes
yeah.
inside and out, but they can't afford to miss anything. And so why can't we have a simple checklist? Because what I love about checklists is you only have to check. You don't have to write anything except for occasionally, because I never could read my technicians' writing anyway. They were
Yeah, some of
so
these CRMs though, you can just make it to where it's a blank space where they type it in.
well. That's better, yeah. But back in the day
Yeah.
where you were back in the day we had to write it is what I was referring to. But anyway, but
Oh
checklist.
yeah. I
Um,
don't even get me started on that. Like
yeah.
we're horrible spellers too. A lot of technicians are horrible spellers.
Oh, I know. And then the grammar,
Yeah.
it gets a little, it gets a little, yeah, it gets a little out there because I'm from the South, and I had guys that were good guys. They're good guys, but man, they were country. You know,
Yeah.
and they would use, I hook up the spigot and instead of the the faucet, I guess.
Yeah.
And just tons of examples of when they would just really butcher up the description. Um, but anyway, so technologies help us on that. But to your point, the consumer's changing, and um, they're
More educated.
they're more
They're more
educated.
educated. They have way more options.
They've got
I mean,
Google, they've got Chat
so,
GPT,
yeah.
and but they don't have your skill set, and so you shouldn't be
Right.
threatened. If there's nothing else, and I was talking to my son about this on that podcast. He gets kind of frustrated. He's like, "Man, I got almost 3 years in heating and air now, and you know, I run into these things, and I'm wondering, did I make the right decision? Is this the right industry?" And if I didn't learn anything else from the lockdown, the essential services lesson was huge. It was
Yeah.
huge. We are in an industry that is going to be here, and you know, corporations have tried to, figure out a way to harness this and take it over, and I'm sure they'll get there, but they just haven't been able to figure it out.
No, I don't know if they'll ever get there. It's a very complicated business, period.
I think it's in the
It
business
takes
model.
skilled labor, a specific set of skills
Yeah,
to do the work, and to communicate with the customers and all that stuff. I just don't think it's going to happen.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. And if they do, it's going to be twice as much, because they got to have all these expensive offices full of people who, bean counters and and things like
Right.
this. So the only way that they could do that would be to regulate us out of our positions
Sure.
and make it too expensive for us to be able to afford to compete with them by having to whatever, which I hope we never see that. But it doesn't matter. We gonna do what we got to do. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's something I used to have like a slight fear of, but it's been tried many times
Um,
where,
I know.
well, gee, even just like the Home Depot and Lowe's and those people, starting to sell the equipment direct to consumer, like none of it works well at all. Like none of it works well. And it's because they don't, oftentimes, they're not paying enough, so that they're hiring, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them are, not the best contractors for the job. So you have unhappy customers, and then I know it works for some people, but I'm just saying, like, doesn't work for everybody. That's
Yeah, the
all I'll say.
consolidators came out when I was in business in the '90s. They were buying up companies, and I remember they bought one up in one of the major cities over there. And I won't say their name. Let's say I'll use my name, Ramsey. It was
Yeah,
Ramsey Brothers, right? And they
yeah,
sold out to the consolidators, and consolidators just basically run it in the ground.
yeah,
Whatever their time limit was, I think it was 12 months. They took all that money they made, bought a whole new fleet of vans, and came out with just Brothers Heating and Air, which not the same name. And
yeah,
their employees came to them, back to them. Their customers came back to them. The other company, they went under, and now these guys were stronger than ever. And they're probably, I haven't been in that market in a long time, but they're probably still market leaders. They were a couple of really sharp guys,
yeah.
doing, crazy. But for you younger guys, the technicians out there, and you're scared to death to go out and start on your own because uh but that's what you need to do. um there's a path, and I know Kelly and I both are working on processes to expedite that, like a short, well, not a shortcut. How would we determine that? Now we're going to do some marketing,
Like a
like a quick start or something like
quick
that.
start. Yeah,
Yeah, and but the idea is to help you get on board. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody out there who has that little itch should scratch it. We probably ought to have a way of testing, are you ready? You know, what do you think? Because we're talking about mindset. I mean, do you have the mindset for that, or you still have that employee mindset? The consumer mindset, because it's not the same. You start to discover this stuff, so it's not for everybody. I think one of the biggest things that we could probably do, instead of encouraging more techs to go off on their own, is encouraging more owners to partner with their techs in creative ways, so that everybody is, they're they're happier. They're
yeah,
they're being taken back. They're part of something, and they've got some ownership on some level. It doesn't mean they're necessarily full partners or anything like that, but I think that's missing. And I told you about the podcast, that interview that I did with David,
yeah.
and I have a separate podcast than this one that I
Hmm.
just started back up, because YouTube is pushing podcasts now, right? So
Didn't know that. Yeah.
you need to recategorize your playlist. I'll show you how to do that offline. That's for you guys probably don't want to hear this, but so right now, I said, well, shoot, I'm going to reactivate my HVAC greatness one, and I interviewed my son, and it was really eye opening. I'm listening to him. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is gold. These two people, the owner or manager and their techs, they they can't communicate. There's a wall there that's created unknowingly, by the
Yeah.
way, by the owners, and fear, or it's basically some level of fear or respect from the technicians. They feel like they can't say what they really feel,
Yeah.
because it's going to come back on them somehow, and it probably would, and that, if that's not fixed, they're going to go somewhere else.
That sounds like a lack of trust. That's normally what keeps people from saying what they want to say because there's a fear surrounding, and there really has to be some more open communication. And believe me, I made every stinking mistake you could possibly make with that. But
Well,
I've learned because I've just continued to increase my knowledge about it because it really intrigues me and fascinates me, and I want to, be able to help others from, don't do what I did, do
sure.
this instead, because
Yeah.
there's so many better ways to do things.
We put a suggestion box in my company that had a little lock on it, and so that people could anonymously say whatever they wanted to say.
Mhm.
And I think they still held back. But when I was talking to David, that was one of the things he took, and he composed an email. He sent it to the manager, who's a female. It's the daughter of the gentleman that started the business, and listed 4 issues, and 4 proposed solutions. So not only did he bring up the problem, he brought up a proposed solution, which is key when you're talking to management and owners. And that was before the weekend. On Monday, she held a company meeting announcing 4 of the 4 suggestions, 3 changes that the business would take effect immediately, and how the technicians would benefit. They adopted his suggestions. But
Yeah, awesome.
yeah, but the other ones were too afraid to say anything.
Yeah.
And David's not. I mean, he's not going to be a jerk, but he's not going to sit there and take it. So uh, don't know where he gets that from.
We'll see what happens when you ask. I mean, people just assume that you can't have things the way you want them because you're afraid of being rejected or someone telling you no. Like, this is just life. So, like, it doesn't hurt to ask. It doesn't hurt to make a suggestion, in my opinion. Like, if you make a suggestion for improvement in your job and you get a bunch of like BS lashback from that, you're probably definitely need to get away from that company anyways. Like, you've got way bigger problems. Um, if you go about it the right way, of course, don't go in there and say, we need to do this and we need to do that. But doing exactly what Pete's son did, I mean, that's very respectable and professional, and that's solid. That's a solid way to go about it.
Yeah, but for some of us, I know I was very shy when I was young,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
So have I.
amazing. Yeah, when it would, like with a really pretty girl at school, would freak me out, to go talk to her. Oh, you can just go talk to her,
Mhm.
just be yourself, like be myself. I'm freaking terrified, you know.
Yeah.
And so there's an internal insecurity that we all have to grow out of, and then we come into our own. But I think that carries over into the workspace, and a lot of times, even though we want to communicate, we're just terrified. And so this is part of your personal growth, and you will grow out of this. Trust me on that, because we all had to go through that. But the way you do that is by challenging yourself in small chunks. Just it's my son used to say, "That's not me." I said, "Well, let's take who you are and just add this one little piece, and just open that circle a little bit. Before you know it, you grow as you keep adding stuff as to who you think you are and who you think you're not." And just keep challenging yourself. And it's the small, consistent challenges that and successes that lead to confidence. And
And also think about 10 years ago,
yeah,
you
good
know,
one.
how much different are you now compared to 10 years ago? Chances are you're a completely different person. And no chances are, I guarantee you have new beliefs, you have new behaviors, you're different in a lot of ways. Maybe new goals, um, maybe you've added some weight on since then. I don't know, but like, you're different. You're different. And the reason it's so hard for somebody to look into the future about like future thinking, like, because they're using who they are today and the beliefs that they hold today and the behaviors that they hold today as a reference for something else in the future. And a lot of times they're so much different that, they say, well, I want this, I want to be this person, I want to be this great leader, who runs a multi-million-dollar business. I want to, whatever it is that they want. And it's such a disconnect from where they currently are that they a lot of times have a hard time envisioning what that future could be.
Yeah.
And it's you have to understand, like, you're going to be a different person in order to get there. So the whole point of thinking about who you want to be in the future is to be that person now. Like, just like what you said, what would that person say to themselves if they got down on themselves? What would they do in this situation? The person that you're becoming. And so if you think about that, um, that will help you begin to imagine, and because you're using your imagination. I mean, there's isn't what Walt Disney said something like that, like the imagination is the most powerful thing on the planet or something. I don't know. It's the more you can envision where you want to go, the more likely you are to get there.
Yeah. And I think the
But you
longer
can't compare to where you are right now, because you're going to be a different person. So
yeah, I agree. And I think the longer that you sit on the sideline and stay inactive, the the longer your development's going to take. The key to everything in life, this is a universal truth, is engagement. Getting out there and just trying, and specifically failing and getting back up and adjusting your strategy and trying again, and sometimes failing again. But it blew my mind, Kelley, and this is I don't want this to sound like I'm taking a braggart position or anything like that, but I remember starting my business wondering, I was terrified. I wanted to find a partner or something. I just didn't want to do it on my own. But I was thrown in a position where I had to. And so I did it. And I went from this insecure guy who did heating and air out of the back of the station wagon because I didn't have a van yet. Right. And in no time, I would say within 5 years, to being one of the market leaders, and we just tearing it up. And the reason was that all that potential that was in there, I couldn't see in myself. And I'm speaking to the listeners, all that potential that you've got, you probably don't recognize it in yourself. Other people can see it. And don't look too close to people who are really close to you, because they see the old you, the younger you, the one that made all the mistakes. When you're stepping out there, people see you um, through the lenses of their experiences, and a lot of times your qualities shine through, and they perceive you much better than you perceive yourself. And I know we won all these awards, and we were just busting it out. Now I was going to the training. I did, that was my first training, was Ron Smith. I mentioned that. I went to his class at live events. We're there, we're doing the workshops, and we're learning, and taking sales class and learning. We, implemented flat rate. Nobody done that before. We put on the shoe covers. Nobody done that before. We're the first ones to do all this stuff in the market. So people just, the response was terrific. And I remember the biggest, oldest company in town hated us because we were crushing it. And the reason I know that is because I heard their CSR away, and she came to work with us, and she told me all this stuff. And
oh yeah.
I never would have known it. I was, like I said, I was shy, and low self-esteem, and or less than I probably should have had. And I guarantee you, if you're listening as well, your capability is so much higher than where you're at. But it takes that engagement to get out there and push yourself. Going to the gym, the muscles come with workouts, right, Kelley? Controlling your calorie intake, the results come out with that. It's all a universal truth.
There's a story. I don't think I told this, but stop me if I did. But there's a story. There's two types of stress. There's distress, which is like overwhelm. You're feeling like you just can't figure it all out. You're tired. You just don't know what to do. You're juggling too many things at once. And then there's eustress. Eustress is like you're purposely putting yourself in positions to take on more so you can become more, right? So these two different types of stress. So think of it like sometimes when somebody's back is up against the wall. I remember there's like a speech on YouTube of Dwayne Johnson talking to one of the football teams, and he's talking about having his back up against the wall. And that can be a really good thing. It could be a good thing that you put yourself in that position, because that's what allowed you to become the person you are today, by having those times where you burn the ships. I think we talked about that a little bit. But there's a guy, he gets a new truck, he drives up into the mountains, just taking it for a test drive. He pulls off to the side of the road, starts snowing like bad, and he's just enjoying the view up there, decides, well, I better get my truck and get going. Gets in his truck and finds out he's stuck in the snow. So first he gets out and digs some of the snow away from the tires, gets back in, just gets worse. Like he's rocking it back and forth. It's just getting worse. So he gets out, tries to throw some gravel or some other sticks down in the hole. No winning here. He's digging himself a deeper and deeper hole. So he decides, well, I'm gonna go into the woods. He goes into the woods, starts collecting wood, and just fills up the back of his truck, puts all this weight on it, gets in, like it's getting dark. He has no cell phone service. He's getting worried. Like, am I gonna have to spend the night up here on this mountain? Puts enough weight on it, throws it in a drive, pulls right out. And so the moral of the story is sometimes you've got to weight yourself down to move forward. Like sometimes you need this stress. Sometimes you need this weight to grow bigger shoulders, to get
Yeah.
stronger, and to have those incremental wins. Like when you have those little bitty wins, and you survive some risk. That's what builds confidence. Like you survive a little risk, build a little confidence. Survive another little risk, build a little confidence. And pretty soon before you know it, you're pretty confident in what you're doing because you took risks. But if you don't take the risks at all, you're not going to have any confidence. So if you just want to stay stuck in your little shell and not try new things and not try to expand yourself and grow and learn new knowledge, then show me somebody who does that, and I'll show you somebody who has no confidence.
I wish I could remember the
They go hand in
example.
hand.
Right. One of our guys in mastermind groups, Ryan over there at Grove, he's up in Minnesota, and he has that strategy. I forget what it was, but he's like, I want to hit whatever his goal was. And so he heaved upon him his own pressure. I don't remember if he bought another van or what it was he did, but
Yeah.
I got to make this happen now. I'm committed now. Right. So I'm in. A lot of times we can do this to ourselves by publicly stating, this is what I'm going to do, and how you got to do it. But there's just certain things that you need to be prepared for when the opportunities do come along, and you need to load yourself up. You need to load your truck up. And I'm going to tell you one. If you ever come across a superstar employee, even if you don't have a spot, hire them. You put the load on and go make it happen. Because those are
People look at employees so many times, they look at it as an expense. It's not an expense. That employee, if they're good, should go make you money. And
absolutely.
so the other thing is that there's just a great guy, and they've won a bunch of awards. I'm not gonna say his name, but he was in a group that I was in, and he just tells the story about you got to run your HVAC business like owners run a baseball team. And he was like, just because I have a shortstop already does not mean that I get an all-star shortstop walks through the door that I won't replace that shortstop. I don't care how long that shortstop has been here. If he's doing mediocre and I've got an all-star that can come, kick butt and take names, then it's my job. You have a fiduciary responsibility as a business owner. Fiduciary, what that means is like you are responsible to make the best decisions for the team.
Yeah.
Not for an individual. You're trying to get your team to the World Series. You're trying to win a championship. And so you have to continually upgrade the talent of the team. You can't, just because you have a player already in that position doesn't mean that that player's position, it's back to like success. There's that saying, like, it's earned every day. It's not given, it's earned. And when you have people who have been with you for a while, they can sometimes become a little bit comfortable. And I think it's good to have somebody else come in and challenge those positions at times, because people, we have to go earn our success every day. That's the bottom line. You got to earn it every day. There's the success tax, right?
Sure. Yeah. So that with a great culture, and oh, by the way, the opposite is true. If you got somebody that's really stinking it up and people aren't happy because of it, the attitudes are being so, or financially, this guy's losing you money and now you can't pay the other guys as
But
well, or
he's a
your
really
own
nice
family as well.
guy.
Yeah.
He has a family
Right.
that you care about, and he's been with you for 4 years.
Yeah.
Like, I get all that, but that's why it's hard to be in business. That right there.
It is. It really is, but it's
You got to make tough decisions.
fiduciary
Yeah.
decisions.
You have to be a fiduciary of your business. It's your responsibility. And it's a tough response. It's heavy.
Well,
Like, it's heavy. That's all I'm gonna say.
this was my epiphany. We had taken on a big job. I was not trained to calculate it properly, and I misquoted it. I underbid it by probably around $50,000, which back then was a lot of money. And I just did it like
That's still a
residential
lot of money.
only,
Come on, 50,000.
it was a chunk back then, and it hurt. But my guys, when the stress came on me, my guys didn't step up when I needed them because they were like, hey, I felt that, and I'm oversimplifying what occurred, but we had to dig our way out of that, and it was painful. And it dawned on me that these guys, if this thing goes under, they can just go get another job. Me, I lose everything. I mean,
That's another thing that guy said. You're right. You're 100% right, Pete. At the end of the day, you lose everything: your credit, your word, your goodwill, your integrity, your happiness, like your future, your dreams, like everything gone if you fail.
fiduciary, my friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Word of the day. No, but I remember having that epiphany, and then my attitude would change, and I'd get these attitudes. Well, I'm not doing that. It's not my job. And I'd run into that, and I remember just biting my tongue and say, well, if you refuse to do it, then that means I have to do it, and if I have
If
to
I have
do
to
it,
do it, why are you here?
I don't need you. And I would say
That's
that if you're not here when I need you,
yeah.
I don't need you. You know,
That's the attitude that I started taking the last 3 or 4 years in my business is, hey, like, I just put my foot down. I'm like, I'm paying people for this, so I need this done.
yeah,
And
yeah,
if it's gonna have to be me, then what are you doing here?
right,
And so it was kind of like when you first had that first epiphany of, like, if I don't charge what I need to charge, I'm not going to be able to stay in business anymore. Like, once you
sure,
learn that and you
yeah,
drew that line in the sand and you're like, all right, I'm not going to feel bad about this anymore because it's what we have to do. Well, that's kind of to the point where I got, where it came with, like, always being the savior for everything. Like,
sure.
always, okay, well, let me run out there at 9 o'clock at night, even though I just got home or whatever. Like, just trying to save everything, be everything to everybody. And it just, like, that's, you know, we did an exercise, that's called, where you automate, delegate, or eliminate.
Eliminate. Yeah,
Yep. And what you say no to is far more important than what you say yes to, in order to be a successful business and not burn yourself out. Like, you have to say no. And it's really hard for people, but you really need to say no more often.
It is, but get burned enough, pay the price enough, and then after you suffered, at some point when the next opportunity comes around, you're gonna stand your ground. But I think it's really important to communicate that different people need to be managed differently, and so you don't want a one attitude for all employees or coworkers attitude. You want to treat each individual to the level of respect that they've earned, and by respect, that means that they respect you back, and so some people act like little kids. You need to treat them like little kids, until you grow them out of that. And everybody's growing. I'm not saying you need to hire a bunch of people to act like kids. In fact, you want to try to do the opposite. But I think that was in the 1 Minute Manager. There's nothing any more unfair than to treat unequal people equally, something like that. And so,
Yeah, that's
these
back
hard
to
lessons are important.
meritocracy or whatever they call it. Like, the people who kick butt for you should be rewarded.
Yeah, they should.
I
Or
just
they're there for you when you need the
can't
ones
not
that are.
believe in that.
Yeah, if they have empathy for you, for if they care about other people,
Yeah.
that's a huge quality, guys. If you're hiring people that only care about themselves, they only care about that money, right? They're not going to be there for you. They're not going to do you right. They're going to do themselves right. And they're not going to be there for your customers. They're not going to do your customers right because they don't care. Because they're
Mhm.
selfish people, and they're out there, unfortunately. And it's really weird. You like Gary V too, right? Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
His big message right now, he's just repeating the heck out of it, is love, care for other people.
Yeah.
Don't bring. The last thing people need is more hatred. If somebody's mean to you, that does not mean you need to be mean back. It's bringing all the positivity back, and I think that's important. And we can get jaded, and we can be pretty mean sometimes.
Yeah, there's a lot of jaded people in this industry. So,
in all industries.
and I'm not saying that I blame them. Like it's really hard. It's a really tough.
And
Especially you've been here for a while, and you've been here for a while. You can
you can pick them
you know
out.
you can definitely um I don't know, just turn into like you know being cynical, I guess. That is that the word, cynical?
Yeah. What was what's Goodrich's first name again?
Good rich. What are you talking about?
Gettle.
Oh, Ken.
Goodrich.
Yeah.
Ken called me one time. Um, just out of the blue. We never met. He'd see my stuff on it. And he's just, hey Pete, like we're old buddies, and he was just talking it up. And he alluded to some of the gurus out there, one in particular, and I definitely won't say the name because it was said in confidence, but the way he described it was very apparent in a very short amount of time that the emperor has no clothes, meaning, this guy's he he's all talk. He's not, he doesn't have that experience, because Rich has been around. I mean,
Yeah.
Ken's been around. He, ground up, because that was the first thing he said to me. The problem with most of these guys out there is they don't have the scars on their backs like you and I do. And I know, you're in the same thing, Kelley. Meaning,
And the torn tendons and yeah.
yeah, and
And
all the things that come by,
all the
from
scars
working the
on the
ground
old
up. And that's why I tell my son, embrace the pain, and
yeah.
all the struggles, because it's just going to make you that much better later. Well, my friend, we have come up
Yeah,
on a
no
full
struggle,
hour.
no street.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good one. So, any of you guys out there, if you made it this long, be sure and put some comments underneath here so we get some topics. And we've been talking about bringing in the third person. We'll probably work on that on some future podcasts to just try to mix it up a little bit, because if you can see that, Kelley and I are cut pretty much from a similar cloth, and so the conversations tend to stay in that same direction, but we want to diversify it. So you guys have some ideas, or if you guys want to jump in and we can do some type of a little private workshop as part of the podcast. Maybe that'd be an idea. I don't know. And just talk through some of these common problems that you guys are seeing. My business has been, was sold years ago, and Kelley's more frequently. But one of the things I love is working people with problems right now. And because it really allows us to stay with our finger on the pulse is what's going on out there. And that's why we love this kind of stuff. So awesome job, Mr. McKay. I'm
Thank you. Same to you, man.
looking forward
Always
to that
fun hanging
new
out.
yeah. Looking forward to that new program you're going to be having out next. And like I said, we definitely need to collaborate on some additional stuff, and hopefully we can work that into 2023 at some point, or if not, shortly thereafter. But thank you so
Yeah,
much for all your great information. And
thank you, man. It's
I guess,
always fun being on here. Like I said, I appreciate our conversations, and we agree on most things. So
well, I mean, experience
just
does
because
that.
I feel like we know the industry too. I know we know the industry. We, like you
Yeah.
said, we have the scars. We have
Well, that's it.
yeah,
Forget degrees, forget certifications. It's it's the scars. You've made the mistakes. You've
yeah,
done it wrong. That's how you learn to do it right.
yep,
And we've done it wrong.
a
a
lot,
million times.
a
Yeah, that's how
lot.
you figure it out. That's why we're on the same page. Awesome stuff, bro. So I'll see you on the next one. And in the meantime, you guys keep those vans and those trucks between the ditches, and be safe out there, and be sure and reach out and let us know what you think. Okay. See you guys.
See you guys.